This is Tech Hub, the TV show for all things tech in Africa. We'll begin with our first trending story today. TikTok has reportedly laid off employees across its African divisions in its quest for global restructuring, leading to a downsizing initiative. Several employees on the TikTok Africa team were laid off in June 2024 after the social media giant announced planned global layoffs. Before employees were told about those scheduled layoffs, the ByteDance owned company cut a few roles on the African team, and this was done in March. We had some layoff in March, but this one in June seemed to be the heaviest so far. We're having teams across Nigeria and South Africa being affected. And from what we hear from insider sources, we hear this is about 100 employees losing their jobs across Nigeria and South Africa. So the exact number was not named by TikTok, but what we know from inside information is that about 100 persons have been laid off. And according to the company's employees, more than half of the TikTok African team based in Nigeria, especially in South Africa, are affected. From all indications, this would not be the last from what we hear happening. It's a global thing. If you're following us on the show, we're reporting about layoffs in Meta, layoffs in Google, and now TikTok has also announced some layoffs. So let's keep our fingers crossed and see how that keep panning out. We're hoping that these layoffs do not continue forever and there's an end in sight for some of these stories. To our next trending story, we're looking at the Nigeria Information Technology Development Agency and the Japanese Agency for International Cooperation have partnered to empower Nigerian startups through the High-Hatch Startup Incubation Program. The cohort 3 of that program is what we're talking about today. The Director General, Kashifu Abdullahi, said in a statement that the program would foster the startup ecosystem and empower the next generation of tech innovators in Nigeria. I'm particularly excited about this one. We're always looking for opportunities to empower startups in Nigeria, be it with an incubation system or with an incubation program. But this one is really one we celebrate, and we're glad that NITDA is making this happen. At the closing ceremony of the 3rd cohort in Abuja recently, Inua and Japanese ambassador to Nigeria, Kazuyoshi Matasunga, celebrated the winners, emphasizing the partnership's significance in driving innovation and entrepreneurship in Nigeria. This partnership is a significant stride in our ongoing efforts to drive innovation and entrepreneurship in Nigeria. So there's a roadmap that the NITDA agency has, and in aligning with that strategic roadmap and action plan, which they've called their SRAP 2.0, part of those pillars are for forging strategic partnerships and collaborations with startups right now across the country. We're seeing this happen and we're quite excited. So well done, great job. We're looking for more. We want more of this to come. We have a lot of startups. We don't want them over concentrated in Lagos alone. We want to see incubation centers across the 6 geopolitical zones. And if possible, we would like to see a situation where the 774 local governments in Nigeria are duly represented with having incubation centers. And we're seeing partnerships from around the world making that happen. Now, to our big story today, we're looking at the rising concerns of cyber crime, cyber attack, and cyber phishing activities in the Nigerian financial industry. This is creating some level of mistrust. This is creating some trust issues between the financial industry and the Nigerian customer. Recently we've had telcos, cryptocurrency platforms, and even commercial banks suffered phishing attacks. The fraud, we've seen this happen too many times. Just recently, we had one of the largest commercial banks in Nigeria attacked. It's becoming one too many. And I know there was a report released by the Fraud and Forgeries team, the Financial Institution Training Center, revealed that the Nigerian banking system lost a total of about 2.09 billion naira to fraud in Q4 of 2023 alone. This is one too many. This is alarming. And from this report, we're seeing that mobile is emerging as the top channel for which these attacks are being penetrated. In the course of our breakfast show called News Hub, we had a cybersecurity expert, Femi Adebiyi, joined us to discuss these issues and more. I think you should take a listen. We'll be right back.
Thank you very much. So I think basically it's not a question of what we are not doing right. I think we have to get clarity and have an understanding that the threat landscape has evolved over time, right? Has evolved over time because there are so many product services that are being delivered now within the financial services industry. And this has then exposed different areas in which cyber attackers can then use to propagate crime. So the idea is that as the threat landscape is evolving, all right, we as individuals and businesses and financial institutions need to ensure that they have the right governance, the right security frameworks, and the right solutions and tools and proper education to individuals, all right, and staff of their institutions to ensure that, you know, the right mindset and the right approach is being delivered within these institutions. A typical example would be ensuring that within the institutions, they have cybersecurity programs, all right? Those programs will then guide what to look out for, what to do, what not to do, all right? So I don't want to go deep into the technical bits, but having a security program within institutions, all right, financial institutions is very, very important, all right? These banks and these institutions have invested massively in security solutions, in security technologies, all right? So the weak link within the entire landscape is the individuals and the end users, all right, that are meant to then ensure that they do the right things or they carry out the right approach in delivering services to the end customers. So that would be my response to that.
Well said. Now let's look at concern around detected attempts. 1.3 million phishing attempts was detected in 2023 alone. That is a massive attempt at the cyberspace. So does this speak to the fact that we just might be a little bit proactive within that space? Could that mean that the financial institutions are a little bit proactive within that space for 1.3 million to have been detected? I don't have the figures of the successes recorded of this 1.3 million. Of course, there must have been some success figure going forward. Does that mean that more awareness have been created? The banking sector, the financial sectors are now in tune with technologies that could help them detect or curb such activities?
Exactly, yes, absolutely. So you use the word detected, and that means that there is a solution that actually has visibility into attempts that have been made by cyber criminals, all right? So I mentioned about the cybersecurity program that should be implemented within these institutions. And this program has to do with how do you respond to, for example, phishing emails that comes in. Phishing forms more than 90% of the medium in which cyber criminals use to propagate this crime. Just phishing alone, outside from other cyber attacks, you know, that are out there. So if you have individuals, staff members, professionals within the organization, and of course the right team in-house within the financial institutions to then educate, all right, end users, because it can't be as a result of one person clicking on an email that has a fraudulent link can then propagate the entire organization. So you are as, you know, secure as the education that you have within your organization, all right, or within these financial institutions. So they are doing something right by having the security solutions. However, a lot of work needs to be done by continual re-education, all right? It is a program that must not be stopped, okay? Because these cyber attackers, what they do have is they have the security mindset to know how to then propagate crime and to know how to then work on people's emotion and your feelings, all right? They know how to get you to click on that link. So the idea is that program should be enforced. And I know that the CBN has a framework which has been passed, you know, the circulars on the website has been passed to all the banks, all right, and financial institutions and any payment services platform to ensure that the minimum technical security baselines and minimum technical security programs must be deployed within institutions. So a lot of work is being done. I think it's a continual process, and I know that as time goes on, these figures should drop. All right, should drop because massive investment has been made within the financial services in institutions. Massive investment has been made.
All right, thank you so very much. But help us understand a few of the social engineering tactics that has been used by these perpetrators of these breaches. Do you want to help us understand a few of those engineering tactics?
Okay, yes. So the first would be phishing, like we mentioned, we discussed. One of the major ones that we've seen in recent time is spear phishing, and spear phishing has to do with a more targeted approach in sending emails to people that have, people that have high profiles, right? Like the CEO, the CFO, the chief operating officers, and the likes. So those emails are targeted at probably maybe teams within the organization, maybe the finance team, maybe within the operations team, within the procurement team. They are more targeted. So when you see an email coming in from the CEO or the CFO, right, and that behind the scene is a cyber criminal who has probably maybe sent an email to look like that particular individual there, but not coming from that individual. So spear phishing is on top of the list. Other ways that you have is phishing as well. Phishing is more like voice over phishing, where people then call over the phone. Most of us are seeing this in recent time. Call on the phone and then, say, I'm calling from your bank, all right? And you will get a code. Behind the scene, we have people who then, are then, having a list of end users or customers information, all right, and tell you that, okay, send this code to this number. Let's get this individual's data out so that we can then transact with that person's account. We all know things are linked now. Your BVN is linked to your numbers, your NIN is linked to your numbers. So the threat landscape is wider now because of all these different platforms and these securities that have been put in place. So there are more ways to come in. We also have the SMS phishing, which is called smishing, all right, whereby because your numbers could be possibly leaked for one reason or the other, right, you can get an SMS, all right, and that SMS will come as a message that you can see a download, icon to click a download on your phone. And the moment you click on download, it's a problem. You can then download a payload on your phone, and it can then, be used to propagate crime. You can then steal your information, and because of that, your information is leaked, and a lot of things can happen based on that. So these are just a few of them, the most common ones, all right? Aside from, even other modes of sending malwares to you, all right? You can get a malware through your web browser. So there are a lot of social engineering attacks, because at the end of the day, it's just the cyber criminal at the back end trying to take advantage of your emotion, make it look as if it's an urgency there for you to respond to that email. So you want to take a cue or take a proper look at those notifications or emails or SMSs or voice calls that comes in. Take a proper look at it. Always do a double check. And I keep saying this to professionals. I say, always verify everything and trust nothing. So that mindset there must be had by everybody. Everybody needs to have that mindset to verify everything and trust nothing. So that's basically some of the social engineering mediums or approaches that we use.
What can I do? You talked about double checking. How do I'm an entire novice talking about cybersecurity, or rather the workings of the space, and someone sends me a mail, and obviously, how do I detect that it's a fraudulent mail? Because this is why many individuals are falling prey to cyber attacks. Awareness, lack of awareness. So how do we begin to detect all of this?
Fantastic question. So I think this is where the real work comes in, into having the right program, and in that program, education has to be top on the list, all right? The common truth is the fact that, like I said, a lot of investment has gone into ensuring that there are security solutions that does that detection there. Now, the second bit now is security is 100%. You can have a 2% of those detections, come in to or get to the end users. So education there is educate your users that if you get an email, the first thing is to do is to, take a look at who the sender is. For example, I see an email appearing to be CEO office, for example, CEO office. I want to ensure that the email there speaks to that particular office. Take a second look at that email. All right. Don't just respond based on the urgency of the email. Take a look at who the sender's email is. Take a look at how the email was constructed. Are there grammatical errors in that email? Is it even a generic email to, for example, their customer, not maybe their Femi or their XYZ person? All right. You want to also take a look at, are there links within that particular email? If you take a look at emails with links, you want to properly hover around the link to be sure that it is going to where it is meant to go to. For example, if that link is taking you to a CBN destination, it should take you to probably maybe the link should show something like www.cbn.gov.ng, right? So if that link is taking you to somewhere called maybe bit.ly.com, it's completely different from who the sender's email is. So I want to begin to suspect all of that. You see, the worst case scenario is escalate that email. Do not respond to the email. Don't be urgent about it. If you then, my advice would be, if anybody needs to respond in urgency, send that email to a security representative that it could be in your office, it could be someone within your circle of influence. Just send that email to somebody to take a second look at it. Because at the end of the day, that email, clicking on that email will end up costing far much more, all right, than whatever urgency was embedded in that email. All right. So this is how you can then spot some emails, all right, that are fishy, the links in them, grammatical errors, generic greeting that hello customer, and the wrong email addresses in those emails. This is just a few of them and the most common ones, all right, from a layman perspective. From the technical side, I want to go into that. So that would just be my advice to everybody and how they can protect themselves on a professional level and also on a personal level as well.
Fantastic. Let's look at the critical role of data governance and privacy protection. How critical is all of this in this cybersecurity conversation?
Oh, very critical, very critical. We've seen in recent years, the establishment of the NDPC, which is the Nigeria Data Regulation Commission there, ensuring that, every business is registered, as well as every business reports, any breach of privacy, all right? And there are fines as well, all right, to breach of privacy, which is eating into your profit as a business, so every organization now is sitting up and showing that they conform with, all right, the regulation, all right, the NDPR regulation as well, which is the Nigerian Data Protection Regulation, and showing that every, what needs to be done by organizations to meet up with data privacy is met, all right? Typically, you want to ensure that on your website, you have things like privacy notice, displaying what data will be used for, all right? You want to ensure that every end user or your customers know how you process their data. It is their right as data subjects. So this issue about data privacy in the last 5 years has become very critical, all right? And, end users or customers can sue organizations, and organizations would pay a huge sum, all right, as a penalty if there is data leakage due to error or due to negligence or even due to, a breach. So it's very important that that conversation around data privacy is being taken very seriously by every organization out there.
Up next, we'll bring you the latest of African tech innovations and breakthroughs with the African Technology Expo that happened recently. This year's theme was tagged Beyond Headlines to Solutions, highlighting practical technologies, addressing real-world challenges, and all that. So it was an opportunity to network, to meet with investors, to meet with industry leaders across Nigeria. Let's dive into the highlights of the recently concluded African Technology Expo. We'll be right back.
we are promised a tech ecosystem that prospers the middle class. But guess what we are getting? We are getting startups who are building apps that keep banking the unbanked. We are getting startups that keep focusing on user experiences over functionality. But at the very core of it, tech is here to make our people prosperous. It's here to elevate the way we live and solve existential problems in Africa. Now, as we embark on this exciting journey together, I want to also keep you in mind that the power of tech, right, doesn't just lie in our ability to build apps with great experiences, but in our potential to solve real-world problems and pave the way for a brighter future.
Tech is one of our greatest exports today in Nigeria and Africa as a whole, and it has created opportunities for individuals to gather wealth, whether within the country and outside. So I believe the tech industry in Nigeria and Africa as a whole is still in its early stage, and with more players within the ecosystem coming together to create an enabling environment. Startups are building, they're growing, but there's no one to take those startups and incubate them at a later stage.
We support platforms such as Africa Technology Expo to showcase the ingenuity that is going on in Lagos. It shows the dynamism in the economy, a large market, a vibrant, youthful population, the availability of infrastructure. All of these things need to be in place for you to have this. And so that is why we support this, to showcase what Lagos can be for investors, for young entrepreneurs, and the entire ecosystem.
Tech is an enabler. Tech powers something. Everybody says tech, AI. What does AI power? AI does not exist on its own. It could be powering security, or powering agriculture, or powering education, or powering medicine, or powering energy. So, the first is to have the substructure, which is the sector or product that you want to power. The second step is to embrace technology, in this case, artificial intelligence, effectively, to use it to enable or magnify the areas that government has interest. So the first question is, what's government's key interest? Is it security? Is it agriculture? If that has been identified, then how do you now employ artificial intelligence to magnify or to enable those aspects? So I think that every right-thinking government in today's world has no choice at all. If you don't embrace artificial intelligence, the world will leave you behind.